Right. Good evening, ma. I think I will need to wait for you a bit. Probably you are available. Okay, good evening, ma. If you are here, kindly let me know. Please drop a message to let me know if you are here. Okay. You probably will be meeting us. So this is PED 110. That is PED 1110, and that is philosophy of primary education. The philosophy of primary education. That's what this course is all about. It's not a course that you need to cram or something. I think this your department is a very cheap one actually. So in this course, we'll be discussing about several things that evolves around philosophy, especially in primary education. Uh, the the course is divided into uh, modules, and each module with different units under them. In module one, we will talk about philosophy of primary education. In unit one, we will talk about philosophy of primary education, and in that module rather, unit one, we look at what we call the concept of education, aims, the goals and objectives. Before you start studying about anything, if I should hold this now, this is my mouse. If I should hold it in the air where some group of students are, and I ask them, what is this? Or if my aim of gathering that meeting is to teach them a mouse, it will be very, very needful, very important, paramount for me to tell them what a mouse is before I start telling them the uses of mouse, importance of mouse, disadvantage of mouse, advantage of mouse. I must first tell them what a mouse is, the concept of a mouse. That is why you see that most of your topics start with concept, concept, concept. So the concept of education, aims, goals, and objective in Unit 1 of Module 1. In Unit 2, we'll talk about meaning, scope, and function of philosophy. And in Unit 3, philosophy of education. Unit 4, we'll talk about philosophical foundation of childhood or primary education. Then in Unit 5 of Module 1, we'll talk about the role expected of the primary school teacher. As a primary school teacher, what are you expected to do? You will learn that in Unit 5. That will move us to Module 2, philosophy of primary education, where we'll talk about in Unit 1 characters of primary education. Oh, sorry, characters of primary school children. How do they behave, the children of the primary school settings? How is their behavior like? What are the things they are already exhibiting at that stage? So in Unit 2, we'll talk about the meaning and purpose of primary education. Why is it necessary to allow children at that age to already be in school? The origin of primary school in Nigeria, which is a form of historical perspective. We will look at that in Unit 3. In Unit 4 of that Module 2, we will talk about the basic outlines of the national policy on primary education. If you remember the first course we did when we were talking about something about education and professionalism, you find out that when you know about the concept of something, it's as a teacher or as a professional, it's also good if you remember the ethics, you know, the characters that of professionalism or of a professional. One of them is that we have regulatory bodies, you understand, that regulates the behavior of professionals. So we have national policy on primary education too. So primary education is not just on its own haywire, just behaving anyhow it likes to behave. We have guides, we have policies that are guiding the operation. So that is primary education. Yes, good evening, Mario. Highly welcome. I am just surveying the material. So after the survey, we'll go to Module 1 and Unit 1, which is what we have this evening. So in Unit 5 of Module 2, we'll talk about the concept of the universal basic education. You have been seeing UBE on primary school buildings. Probably you know the full meaning before that, it is universal basic education, but I don't know if you know what they're all about, what they deal with, what the organization is meant to do. You will know that in this course in Unit 5 of Module 2. So in Module 3, that is the role of the school in personality development. We'll be talking about some men that contributed to personality trait and personality development here. I see I have a small idea on that. So in Unit 1 of Module 3, where we want to talk about personality development, personality starts from childhood like that. The kind of personality a child will eventually, put forth or exhibit, that child built it right from childhood. That's from where they are still very small. So you will learn the contribution of the man called Plato to primary education. He tried. You will learn. These are men you should know even normally. Let's leave exam aside or you preparing for anything. These are things you should know as a teacher. These are great men that contributed to education, especially primary education. So Plato is one of them. We'll look at his contribution. We'll look at Jacques Rosset and John Amos communions to primary education. We look at all of these people's contribution to primary education. And then we'll look at John Heinrich. I think this man is popular. You might have been hearing about him. John Heinrich, and that is Heinrich Petalos, and Maria Montessori, which is I think that one, we have a painting of her that is very popular, and their contribution to primary education. Then contribution of John Dewey to primary education. These are scientists actually, but probably philosophers. John Dewey, there's this theory of his that is very popular. Now we have in Unit 5, relevance of philosophy of education to the primary school teacher. This will help you to know the behavior of, excuse me, the behavior of the children, different developmental stages that these children passes through. while they are in primary school and how to meet their needs at those stages. You will learn all that in this course. And I think that is the last module in the course. And then we move to what we have today. Well, today we will just take the material is not a long one. It's not a long one. We have 15 units actually. That means we have 15 classes and we are done. So that if we take 1 unit per class, but there will be some units that are interwoven. So we need to take like 2 sometimes per class. But let's see, depending on the time we have. So um philosophy of primary education, we'll talk about in this unit 1, the concept of education, aims, goals, and objectives. Well, very similar to what you did in your last class. We talked about the concept of education there, but we probably did not talk about the aims, the goals, and the objectives. So we'll look at those here. So the concept of education, the meaning and definition of education, we'll talk about the aims of the education, the minimum skill required, the vocational training, stimulating the desire for knowledge, development of critical outlook in pupils. So then we also have another one, the concept of childhood education, specific philosophical aim and objective of education in Nigeria. When we talk about the NPA, that is National Policy on Education, nationalism, value system, intellectual formation, skill acquisition, and then lastly, we'll do evaluating Nigerian education aims and objectives. So it's as simple as that. And I believe by the time we are done with this course, we'll be so uh, groomed in primary education and the philosophy that support it that we will no longer have any doubt as to whether we can or we can't take that role. So the introduction, I won't take that much because we'll start from the second paragraph actually, because they said that okay, so let's start with the introduction. Excuse me, ma. So to the introduction, you have read the course guide, well, that's blah, blah, blah. So for this first unit, we shall start with the concept of education and refresh your mind or memory on the meaning and definitions of education and the aims of education. We shall look at vocational training, stimulating the desire for knowledge and developing a critical outlook. It means part of your role as a teacher probably is to stimulate the desire for those pupils to want to learn more, to want to know more. You understand? So you should not be having that kind of feeling that they should, as in inherently in themselves, they should want to learn. Why do I still need to stimulate them to learn? Well, you will see why. You will see why. So let's see. So we shall also touch on democracy as an aim of education and some philosophical aims of education in Nigeria, especially. So the National Policy on Education, NPE, is a very important abbreviation you need to know in this course. It's part of the question in the question bank. What's the full meaning of NPE? National Policy on Education. So, and that's thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. I don't know what made me cough then. So, um, so national policy on education. Let's not forget that. So, from there we will talk about nationalism, value system, intellectual formation, skills acquisition, and evaluation of Nigeria educational aims and objectives. Also, okay, so let's look at the objectives. Like I mentioned that you as a teacher or as an intending teacher, you should know that it's very important to go through the objectives. As a matter of fact, you should learn to give your students, your pupils, whatever, objectives. Why do we want to learn what we want to learn today? So when I'm done learning today, I as a pupil or as a student, I will go and check the objectives and see that thing the teacher said earlier that is a reason why we are doing what we are doing today. Am I able to do it now? If I'm not able to do it, it means I need to repeat that class because I haven't gotten what the class was meant to pass to me. So by the end of this unit, especially, we should be able to what? Explain the concept of education. They will not give us, probably there will be no direct definition of education here, but there will be explanation. You know, there is difference between defining something and explaining something. Explanation is always long. You are trying to look at that thing from every angle possible. That is explanation. You are explaining it is different from your define. If you just definition, if I didn't mean to say you just, well, you see there is the second option, there is define education. So after you've gotten the explanation, they may use stories, they may use events, they may use examples to teach you the concept of education. Then we move to defining education. So when you already know the concept, the explanation of that thing, it's very easy for you to come up with a definition, even on your own, by merely looking at the explanation given to you on something by someone. You should be able to come up with a definition for that thing, your own definition for that thing, because you now understand what the thing is all about through the explanation. Then you should be able to list the aims of education. And then one important thing you should also note is that when you are reading for an exam, always read the objectives of each unit. Then go to look for the answers to the objectives of that unit in the unit. That is to tell you that if we will test you at all in this unit, we are going to test you on the explanation of education, the definition of education, the aims of education. You should be able to list specific philosophical aims and objectives of education in Nigeria. And of course, lastly, in this unit, we should be able to explain the national policy of education, especially when we are talking about Nigeria. When we are talking about Nigeria. Excuse me, ma'am. So that is it. That is it. So I will start the what is it called now? Excuse me. Let's start. Sorry, I'm just trying to attend to something. So let's start with the concept of education is an explanation. So we need to read through. This is just a reading class. We are not preparing for exam yet. It's time to read and really know what is in the material. So we are not just going to be cramming and, once you read the first reading, now you understand what the material is all about. So even when we want to start preparing for exam and we're not doing revision, you've understood the concept in the material already. So reading for exam will not be a tough one. Yes, national policy on education. Thank you, ma. So let's move on. Concept of education, like philosophy, there are as many definitions as there are educators. Excuse me. So education is an umbrella word under which a large number of processes take place. So there is no agreement as whether or not some activities may be considered to be educational. Individual differences about education are more or less determined by their philosophical orientation. I believe we understand what they are trying to say here. That the word education, even looking at it, what's wrong today? Excuse me. Looking at it generally, if you check the various ways in which people use education, the word education, you find out that they use in several fields, in several ways. You educate someone, you give someone education. So there are so many ways we use the word education. So what they're trying to drive out here in the concept of education is that concept, that word is a wide word. It is used widely in different forms, and there is no agreement. There is nowhere where it is written that this particular thing fall under the concept of education or this one doesn't fall under. So in any case where the word is being used, as diverse as those applications are, we cannot say that one is qualified for being called education or the other is not qualified for. That's what they're trying to say, that the word is used widely in diverse ways. So we concluded the concept of education with the fact that individual differences about education are more or less determined by their philosophical orientation. So if you are you are someone that believes in Socrates, if you are a Socratic philosopher now, your perspective of education will be different from somebody that is a Platonian. That's somebody that believes in the philosophy of Plato. So they are both philosophers, but in different dimensions. So the dimension of philosophy in which I view education is what will determine my own definition or my own belief about education. That's what they're trying to say. The word itself, it's a complex, it's not actually compound, but the right word they use there is umbrella. So that is perfect. It's an umbrella word under which so many things find shade, so many things can hide, so many concepts can hide. Somebody that is just uh, probably teaching people on the road how to, keep hygiene, maintain proper hygiene. The person will say he's educating the masses. So in that place, education is not abused. That's what they're trying to say here. That we can't say that kind of person is abusing education, because definitely you are exposing people to new things they don't know, or probably proper way of doing something they have been doing before, which they've been doing wrongly. So it's an umbrella word. That is the concept of it. So the first thing here that you should put in your mind is that the education as a word is an umbrella word, and there is no agreement as to whether something falls under it or something doesn't fall under it. And of course, how a person will view it is determined by the philosophy the person believes in. That is the philosophical orientation that person have. So let's go to the meaning and definition of education. This is where we will start reading deeply about it, what it's all about, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's see. Uh, uh, so, excuse me. Meaning and definition of education. What does this word educate? Well, you know the meaning already, or you know the definition already from our last class. But let's see a proper way of defining it based on this material. Whenever we hear the word education, the first place the mind goes to is the school. There is no lie about this. Like an average person, whenever they hear the word education from anybody, their mind goes to the school straight. Their mind goes to the school straight, because they believe that education only takes place in the school. That is where the concept of the word being an umbrella word and can be used in diverse places come in, to counter that orientation, that belief that most people have on education. That once I hear the word education, oh, school. Well, it's not bad. Most of the time, we tend to think of education in terms of what teachers and their pupils do in school. We mean that what takes place in the school is only a small fraction of education. Indeed, education is a process that starts the very moment a person is born and ends when the person dies, which means education is a continuous process. You never stop learning. You know this thing today, tomorrow you meet some set of people, you see a new way of doing something, you learn again. You don't know this thing at all today, tomorrow you come across some group of people, they expose you to that thing, you learn. This one, so education is not limited to the walls of the school, like the general opinion or belief or orientation usually take it. So when I hear the word education, as a layman, what goes to my school is what they go to school to do. That is education. Well, you as a teacher, you should know that the word education is not limited to school. In fact, that is just a fraction of it. Like if we have a whole now and you cut small out of it, that is a fraction. So the education that takes place in the school is just a fraction of what the word education itself stands for. So it is a continuous process. It doesn't stop anywhere. It starts as soon as you give birth to a child and the child cries and the child starts looking for food, and so on and so forth. So you will learn all that when we get to the module 3. So it's a continuous process. The process of education is one that involves a number of activities on the part of several people, including the teacher, the pupil, the parents, the government, and every citizen of the country. They all participate in the process in one way or the other. So, as you are well aware, teaching is a key factor in education and learning is another. Teaching is a key factor in education and learning is another. So what I'm trying to say now is that teaching and learning, they are two different factors. They are all under education. They are all under education, but they are two different factors. So you not combine teaching and learning as the same thing. They are far different from each other, as you will learn. So the first teacher a child ever has is his parent. This and the learning process starts as soon as he enters, excuse me, the world. As soon as he enters the world. So the first teacher every child ever or will ever have is the parent. Is the parent. So they are the one that help the child to know right and wrong and so on and so forth. And that process of learning through the parent starts as soon as that child enters the world. And how well groomed the child will be is depending on how educated, how exposed the parents are. That one is just a simple logic. If you have a child born into a well educated, well cultured, well civilized, and socialized family, the child will naturally behave in that same condition because the first teacher the child will have is the parent. So, since the teaching and learning process starts with the child's parent, the mother in particular, the background of the learner matters a lot. What they're trying to bring out here is that when we're talking about the word education, even though we believe that literally it starts in the school, that is a wrong opinion. Education starts as soon as a child is born, and it's the first instructor or teacher that a child has is the parent, especially the mother. That is number one. The second thing, or what they're really trying to bring out here, is that the behavior of the child in the school education is going to depend largely on the background the child is coming from. So take for instance a child that comes from a home where both parents are not educated and they actually have nothing much to contribute to the standardization of the child's behavior. So the child just behave naturally the way things are, not cultured, not groomed. That kind of child, you can't compare the behavior of that kind of child in the educational settings in the school with a child that came from a family of professors. So we have two different things there. So they're trying to tell you that there is a kind of image or a kind of curve that the background the child is coming from, we cast on the educational behavior or the behavior of the child in the educational settings of the school. So while it is not wrong to believe that education, when you hear education, you think about school, well, it's not bad, but there is something very important that contributes to education far more than school. That is the parental teaching, which is the first stage of education the child is exposed to. And that is what we call the background. So if, for instance, the mother of the child is an educated lady with a good means of livelihood, that is a good earning capacity, one can be sure that the child will be fed and taught a lot of things that another child from a less enlightened family is not likely to have. I have just explained this earlier. So a child growing up in a home where both parents can find time to teach and interact with him certainly has some advantages in terms of education. So this is even more so when there are such things as books, newspaper, magazines, radio, and television to stimulate his learning in the home to increase his development in education. We are seeing what they mean by background now. So as you can see, education begins at home with parents leading the way. So if you have the opinion before that parents have little or nothing to contribute to the education of the child, you now have a reorientation now that the first teacher a child has is the parent, especially the mother. So at the school, the teacher continues the process of education, or sorry, of educating the child, which has already been laid at home. The parent serves the responsibility of laying the foundation of the education of the child. What the teacher does in the school is not to lay the foundation, is to continue building on what has already been laid. So if the foundation is wrong, if the foundation is faulty, if the foundation, or what we refer to as the background, if it's not a good one, the teacher will have a lot of headache to deal with in school. So if a teacher don't understand that he is not a builder of foundation, but somebody who built on foundation already built at home, then the teacher will have issues understanding the children or probably giving his or her best to the children. So what you should learn here as a form of enlightenment is that when you notice some of your pupils that came from homes where the foundation is likely not well built, maybe you should make an attempt to help the child heal from faulty foundation first. Then try to culture a new foundation. They are still kids actually, so the opportunity is still fresh. They can still adapt to new things, they can still change. Even if they've been learning something bad at home, you can correct that in the school. So let's stop all the stories. A teacher is the one that continues the educating of the child in the school, continues from where or what the parent has already imbibed in the child. So you should understand that the teacher does not take over the education of the child. That is one. You don't take over the education of the child. The teacher and the child's parent are partners in progress as far as the child's education is concerned. Well, the moment the child comes to school, that doesn't mean the child will never return home. So the child comes to school and still go back home. So what you are giving in school as education is just going to be complementing what the child will still go back home to learn. So if you say A in school and the child gets home and the parents say B, there will be a form of conflict. But since the child will keep going back home and keep coming back to school, then both parents and teachers are partners in progress, not just partners for some time, partners in progress until the education of the child is achieved. So I hope you are still with me, man. I hope this is not boring. If the class is boring, you let me know so we change the tactics. So at the school level also, the responsibility of educating the child is shared by all the agencies of education, which ensure that adequate facilities, including books, furniture, materials, and qualified staff, are provided. It is also government's responsibility to ensure the safety and health of the child through its various agencies. We're still talking about education. That's why I told you that when we talk about explanation, you talk in depth about that thing. You are looking at the up, the bottom, the left, the middle, the right of that thing when you are explaining. You are giving examples, you are giving analogies, you are giving, that is explanation. That is why you say that this place is somehow elaborate. All they have been telling us is just about education. Yet we have not even gotten to a single definition of education yet. But we are now understanding layer by layer, as if somebody building a house, laying the blocks one by one, what education means and what it doesn't mean. So, in the school, not only the teacher is saddled with the responsibility of taking care of the child or educating the child, we have several facilities available. The library, the those in the what do we call them now? We have a lot of departments in the school that contribute to the welfare of the child while the child is still in that being educated. So the government also come in through agencies that make sure that the school environment is a safe place, and then we have health facilities that will help the child, stability. So the process of educating, or sorry, the process of education, therefore, involves different activities on the part of the parents, teachers, the community, the government, and the child. So this is very important. From what we've been saying from the previous paragraph, they're not trying to tell us that in summary of that last paragraph, when we're talking about educating a child or the process involved, we are likely talking about different activities that comes on several parts, and the parts that, or the partakers of those activities, are the parents, the teacher, and the community, the government, and even the child itself. So in essence, when we are talking about the education of a child, you remember some key factors or uh, players. The players we have there, we have the parents, which you've learned to be the primary and the first contact of education a child has. Then the teachers, which is a partner, or who is a partner, or yes, a partner in progress, or those are things they test you on in non-exam. That partner in progress, now you find you'll be amused to see it in the exam, that who is a partner in progress in the educating of the child, as in dash is a partner in progress with the parent in the education of the child. That is how they form questions. It's just simple things. You know that is a teacher. So now the players we have in education: the parent, first contact the child has; the teacher, the person that builds on what has been planted by the parent, and then continually build on what the parents keep planting; and then the community, where the child finds him or herself; and the government, that provides facilities; and then the child, which or who is in the center of the whole thing, the one who is being educated. Five of them, five players: parents, teachers, community, government, the child. So the goal is to help him in the sense, the child, to acquire knowledge, skills, and morals. So when we are talking about education, it doesn't just stop at acquiring knowledge, it gives the child skills too, and much more important, morals. So these components of education are essential to the making of the person. The educated person is one who can apply his knowledge and skills in such a way as to find solution to whatever problems that may confront him. So after you've imbibed in that child some skills, some morals, some knowledge, the child becomes educated through all those resources you've made available to him or her, and that leads the child to this level of confidence that whenever a challenge surfaces the child can go back into the skills he has acquired and source for a perfect skill to use in solving the challenge. That is what we call the child an educated person. You can use what you've gotten through education to solve real life problems and challenges, and you behave like somebody well cultured. That should, when you see some people behave somehow in the community, you say, "Wow, this one is an uneducated illiterate." When you see somebody behave well, you say, "Wow, this person is behaving well. This must be a very educated person." So it's very simple. So education indeed is a practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. Education indeed is the practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. Yes, education is indeed the practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. That is the last statement which you should bear in mind under the explanation or the meaning, explaining the meaning of education. Having done this, I believe we now know what education is, even before defining it. We now know what education is. So this last statement can also qualify for the definition or the meaning of education. Education is the practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. Education is a practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. So, but what is, sorry, who is an uneducated person? Now, that's a question. You can try to answer that in the chat box. Who is an uneducated person? So far, so good. You've been learning about an educated person. What makes a person educated? Who are the players in education? The parent, the teachers, the community, the government, and the child itself. What are the things that happens that shows that somebody is being educated? The parents start it, the teacher continues it as a partner in progress. You've learned all that about education. They now want to ask you, they did not tell you who an uneducated person is while explaining who an educated person is, but they just want to test you to know if you have been following. So if you already know who an educated person is, then without being taught, you will know who an uneducated person is. So in this last section, he said that the educated person is one who can apply his knowledge and skills in such a way as to find solution to whatever problems that may confront him. In other words, an uneducated person is a person who cannot or who doesn't have the knowledge and skills required to find solution to whatever problems may confront him. It's as simple as that. If the one educated can apply his knowledge and skills to find solution, then the one that is uneducated will not be able to do that. It's just word and opposite. So, and then what is education? That is the second self-assessment question for you. Education is the practical way of attaining individual and social fulfillment. It's as simple as that. So I believe we're done with Unit 1 or partially. So let me check the time because I don't want to be stretching you much. I don't want to be stretching you much. Thank you. An uneducated person is one who cannot apply his knowledge and skills in such a way, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. That makes sense. You are following. So, okay, we still have like 15 minutes or so. Let's read about the aims of education. So, well, we've understood the meaning of education now and what education is. Now, why education? What are the aims of education? Why must we educate people? Let's not use people alone. Everyone gets educated. So why is it necessary for human to be educated? So the statement of aims of education has become a common feature of the activities of educational planners and administrators. The statement of aims of education has become a common feature of the activities of education planners and administrator. That's the first thing they want you to know on the aims of education. So let's see. But more often than not, there is confusion as what is meant by the term aims of education. What does it mean? Sometimes one finds that the word aim is regarded as the equivalent of purpose or intention. So dash is regarded as the equivalent of purpose or intention, aim. So they are talking about aim, that is it's just like when we are saying the popular opinion. When someone just hear aim, the first thing that comes to his mind is they are talking about purpose. Asking me now, what is my aim of doing this thing? It's like you're asking me, what is my purpose of doing this? That is what comes to the mind straight. Or you are trying to ask me, what is my intention of doing this thing? To say yes. So headmasters and classroom teachers are not sure of what exactly is expected of them with regard to the pursuit of what is intended. So our exploration of the aims of education here is to relate the issue to our school, to relate the issue to our school. So now we will now talk about the meaning of educational aim. Well, from the aims of education, we are likely going to say that aim is just like intention or purpose as to why something is done. So sometimes one finds that the word aim is regarded as equivalent of purpose or intention. So that is it. Now let's go to the meaning of educational aim and find something interesting. Anytime you see meaning, they are going to elaborate. It's not just going to give you a concise definition. It's going to elaborate, like it's going to be like talking about something, giving an example, giving analogies, and the rest of them. That's when they ask you for meaning. It's different from defining something or definition. So we can define educational aim as a statement of what we hope to do in order to achieve our goals of education. Very interesting. They started this paragraph with the topic sentence. The topic sentence is just that concise definition that says that educational aim is a statement of what we hope to do in order to achieve our goals of education. Well, the answer to that last question is basically intention. Sometimes one finds that the word aim is regarded as the equivalent of purpose or dash or intention or intention. Okay, I have another icebreaker for you here under the aims of education or educational aim. So, some philosophers attempt an etymological definition of education. They trace it to opposite roots, which originate from two opposing philosophical tenets. One view derives education from the Latin word educere or educere, which means to lead out. This is a question in the question bank. The Latin word educere or educere means what? To lead out. The Latin word educere means to lead out. Now, this group of philosophers, following the tradition of Plato and other idealists. So, Plato is an idealist. That's something to learn here. The man Plato is an idealist. He's a philosopher, but an idealist. He believed that the learner has innate ideas. That means ideas that come from within, which only need to be squeezed out, pulled out, and expanded. So those that say that education came from a Latin word educere, which means to lead out. They are people like Plato or any other idealist. Basically, idealists are the ones that believe that education came from a Latin word, educere, which means to lead out. And what they are trying to imply is that every learner has innate ideas. That is innate ideas. That means something inside, something you are born with, something you came to this world with. So, according to the ideas, that's what they believe, that every child, or sorry, every learner, as they put it, has innate ideas. And all the teacher needs to do, or the educator needs to do, is to squeeze out, to lead out that innate ideas and help the child to expand on them. That is why they said it came from the Latin word educere, which means to lead out. So their own philosophy is clear. The reason why they choose the word educere in Latin, which means to lead out, is because they believe that every learner is born with an innate idea which only needs to be pulled out, squeezed out, and then expanded. So the other school of thought that believes education came from another word are the people that believe that education came from that same Latin word, educere, but it means to form or to train. That is why they say that the philosophy is conflicting. It came from two conflicting ideas, two opposing ideas. One said it's to lead out. The other one said is to train or to form. So two philosophies. But those don't key points you should not forget is that those that believe that it is from sorry, it means to lead out are those that said every learner has innate abilities or ideas that only need to be squeezed out, pulled out, or expanded, and then be expanded. And those are the people we call the idealists. And a typical example of those set of people is Plato. Plato. Now, the other set of people, which we can call the other school of thought, they believe that it's that same word, that same educere in Latin. But what it means is to form, according to them, or to train. So this group follows the tradition of John Locke and other realists. So we have the idealist and the realist. Idealist, example, Plato. Realist, John Locke is an example, and other realists. So, and they state that the child or the learner's mind is a tabula rasa. So, the idea or the concept of tabula rasa came from John Locke and the realists. So, the realists believe in tabula rasa, the idealists believe in innate ideas. Please, these are important things. This is where the material gets interesting because only in this paragraph alone, none can form up to 20 questions. So I will repeat. Let's take it very clearly again. We have two schools of thoughts, two philosophical schools that believed that education came from the etymologically, that is going back to the roots of education, defining education by the roots. We have two philosophical schools that have two conflicting ideas or two opposing ideas about education. While both of them believe that education came from the word educere from Latin, we have the idealist school and the realistic school. So for the idealists, to them, the meaning of educere in Latin is what? To lead out. And what are you leading out? The innate ideas that a child already came with, which you only need to pull out of the child or squeeze it out of the child, then expand on it. That is for the idealist. But for the realist, and okay, for an example of the idealist, we have Plato and every other person that believes in that philosophy. Then the second school, which is the one conflicting with the Plato or the idealist school, is the one we call the realist. Now, the realist, for the major example we have is John Locke. Their own belief is somehow different. They believe that, yes, education is from the root word educere in Latin, but the meaning is not to lead out to them. To them, the meaning is to form something or to train something. So, in order to give a clear picture of their idea, they said it's instead of saying that the child's mind is sorry, the learner is having an innate whatever that can be pulled out, they believe that the child mind is empty, tabula rasa. So tabula rasa, an idea of the realist and a typical example of a realist, John Locke. What does tabula rasa means? It means an erased or blank sheet. And I think this is the one we believe most today, that when you born a child, the child's mind is empty. A newborn baby does not know anything. The brain is empty, the mind is empty, it hasn't stored anything. That is the concept. So when you have that kind, if that is one you believe, then you are a realist. If that is a concept that you yourself, you have your own concept that you believe, your own philosophy on a child. So when you see a child, do you believe that that child is already having something inside of him? You only need to bring that, to squeeze that thing out. Or is your idea is that, look at this innocent baby, doesn't know anything yet. If that is your own idea, you are a realist. and you fall under the John Locke group that believe that the learner's mind or the child's mind is a tabula rasa, an empty or erased blank sheet. So the full meaning of tabula rasa means a blank sheet or an erased blank sheet. Doesn't contain anything. So external objects make impression on the mind and fill it with information and knowledge. So according to the realists, they now believe that since it's an empty sheet, tabula rasa, that is what the child's mind looks like. It is external event, what is happening outside that child, outside the mind, that will be forming impressions on the mind, and then the mind will start getting filled. So when the child looks and is watching a cartoon and somebody is laughing, then the child will start laughing inside the mind. That is an external object forming an impression on the mind that is empty. Then the mind starts storing those impressions. So that is it's a very interesting one. I hope we still have time. I don't like to take your time. Okay, we still have 7 minutes. Yes, yes, thank you, Mike. It means an erase. So let's finish the explanation of what are we doing now? We're actually doing the meaning of educational aim. So A.N. Whitehead, A.N. Whitehead says defines education as the process. Now we're now going to educational aim. Now we're not looking at definition now. We've talked about explanation already. So the process, one thing you should not forget about the etymological meaning of education is that it came from the root word, from the Latin root word educere, which means in one form to lead out, or in the other form to form or to train. So Whitehead defines education as the process by which people acquire the act of utilizing knowledge. By which people acquire the act of utilizing knowledge. The man A.N. Whitehead. This is a question in OBJ. They usually ask that in OBJ, and then you choose the one that is correct. So it is guidance. Okay, let's look at that definition again. It is the process by which people acquire the act of utilizing knowledge. The act of utilizing knowledge. To him, he did not say it's an act of acquiring knowledge. An act of utilizing knowledge, which means you are likely to have known already. You now want to learn how to use what you know. That is according to Whitehead. So it is guidance towards a comprehension of the act of life. To John Dewey, now that is according to Whitehead, act of utilizing knowledge. So when you see act of utilizing knowledge in an exam, they are talking about Whitehead. But what of John Dewey? According to John Dewey, education is the process of living, not a preparation for further life. To John Dewey, education is the process of living. So when you see process of living, John Dewey. When you see act of utilizing knowledge, Whitehead. So it is a continuous process of growth according to John Dewey, and its purpose is the development of the intelligence in such a way that the experience one gets at one time can be carried to a subsequent experience and used in solving one's life problems. Moreover, education is meant to develop both the individual and the capacity for social living. I will support John Dewey a lot, because sometimes the experience you learn from one event helps you in the other event. For instance, a child that doesn't know anything about fire, a newborn, that first goes near the fire and you say, don't go near fire, don't go near fire. A day the child dips his hand or his finger in a burning fire and experiences the hot. You understand? Next time when the child sees fire, because he has experienced pain from fire before, the experience will not tell him this is not a place you should go. You should not toil with it. It carries the experience from one event that has happened in the past to help him now in this new event. So that is according to John Dewey. Education is a continuous process, and then people carry experience from one event to another in solving life's problem. We have another person, R.S. Peters. Now, according to R.S. Peter, he says that education is a process of socializing, enculturation, and transmission of what is worthwhile to those who are committed to it, whether they are children or adults. So, the man R.S. Peter, to him, when you see the word enculturation, socializing, and then enculturation and transmission of what is worthwhile, they are talking about R.S. Peters. Now, the way they ask questions on this is that they give you a definition and ask you who defined education in such a way. So, according to R.S. Peter, enculturization, just use keywords to hold each definition. R.S. Peter, enculturization. For John Dewey, you can use the word uh, continuous process of growth, process of growth, or process of living, because he gave two important things there. He said education is the process of living, education is a continuous process of growth. That is John Dewey. And by Whitehead, utilizing knowledge, an act of utilizing knowledge. Once you use keywords to hold each name, it's easier for you to remember. For Whitehead, act of utilizing knowledge. For John Dewey, process of living or process of continuous growth. For R.S. Peter, enculturization. Enculturization. That is a keyword in its definition. So when you see that keyword, you remember R.S. Peter. So in view of all this, that definition, we can define education as a process of developing knowledge, ability in learners in such a way that they use this knowledge to improve themselves and their society. Now, your material is giving you a standard definition. We've studied A.N. Whitehead, we've studied John Dewey, we've studied R.S. Peter's contribution to the meaning of education. Now, having gone through those three, we want to come up with a standard definition of our own. So we say that education can be defined as a process of developing knowledge, ability in learners in such a way that they use this knowledge to improve themselves and their society. So that is it. That is a take home today. Education can be defined as a process of developing knowledge or knowledge ability, a process of developing knowledge ability in learners in such a way that they use that knowledge or this knowledge to improve themselves and their society. So improvement of society and oneself through knowledge acquired is what we call education. So you should understand that the word aim conveys some suggestion of an object that is not near at hand or so easy to attain. So when we ask the headmaster of a school what he is aiming at, it is only one way of drawing his attention to what he and his teacher must do or must be doing to raise the standard of education in a school. So from the foregoing, the main point made about the aims of education are as follows. So when we talk about the aims of education, what are they? We say that the aim of education is not something that is near. We're asking you about something. When you say aim, something that is still ahead, something in the future, something you are hoping to work towards, to get. So what are the aims of education? And that is where we are going to stop today. Where the material gives us three aims, and we'll look at them critically and end the class today. We tend to ask about the aims in context where we think it's important to get people to specify more precisely what they are trying to do. This one is just trying to tell you that when you're asking somebody, what is your aim of, okay, somebody is uh, trying to probably make you sad or uh, trying to kind of, spoil your day. And then you ask the person, what's your aim of doing this? When you ask that person, what's your aim of doing this? One of the thing you are likely thinking about or you are trying to get is you are trying to get a more precise reason why that person is acting the way he or she is acting at that particular point. That's why you want to know what is your, I know, I already know what you are doing like this. I am seeing what you are doing to me, but what is your aim of doing it? Why are you doing it? Because you asking that person what is the person's aim, you are trying to get a more precise reason as to why that person is acting or trying to do what they are doing. So another thing is that aim suggests the concentration on and the direction of effect toward an objective that is not too near or close at hand. When we have something far away, like somebody that just resumed office now, you understand, as an headmaster, and then the headmaster we need to, reshape, rebrand, furnish the school, and make the school better. Now, when you ask the person what is the aim of that person, of being a headmaster, that aim you're asking the person is not something the person will do tomorrow. The person may have maybe 10 years to serve. So it's something they're asking of, something of next year, 2 years to come, 3 years to come. What is the aim? They're just trying to tell you that the proximity of aim is not something near. It may be something far away, but at least you have it in mind that you want to do it. So aims also suggest the possibility of failure or falling short. Aim also suggests the possibility of failure or falling short. So, having examined the suggestions that are generally associated with aim, now all these are just suggestions associated with aims. Let's not mix things together. They say from the foregoing, the main point made about the aims of education are as follows. I'll take them again, but I'll just read through them. Number one, we tend to ask about the aims in context where we think it's important to get people to specify more precisely what they are doing or trying to do. Aims also suggest the concentration on and the direction of effect towards an objective that is not too near or close at hand. And lastly, aims suggest the possibility of failure or falling short. So when they list these three in the exam and they add one to it, say which one is not the aim of education, you should know which one is not. So having examined the suggestions that are generally associated with aim, we will now identify some aims of education and discuss them. So what we've listed above are just suggestions to say that if we want to come up with the aim of education, these are things we should bear in mind as the meaning of aim itself. Those three highlighted points above, they are just trying to tell you that when you're asking somebody about aim of something or of doing something, these are things you are likely expecting. So when we ask what is the aim of education, we are trying to get more precisely what educating someone will be trying to do. You understand? So that is what we're trying to say. These three are just suggestions to getting or to prepare us to getting the aims of education. So when I know that when we're talking about aims, we're talking about these three things, then when we want to talk about aims of education, it becomes clearer to me because I know what I'm expecting. So in the next class, we'll start with the aim of education, when we'll be talking about the minimum skill, the vocational training, and the rest of them. I believe this class has been helpful. Thank you for your time. Thank you for attending. It's time to bring the class to an end, and we have another class tomorrow. Please bear it in mind. If you don't have any question, we'll take it as a day already. And probably if you have a question, just maybe when you go through it again, the videos are always there. When you watch it again, drop the question as a chat. Thank you, ma. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.